Ariel White, and have I got a discussion for you all tonight. An interesting title. I'm calling it, and y'all get a load of this. It's the TSA pre-check for love, checking your baggage before you board a new relationship. Y'all think about what I'm saying here. Checking your baggage before you go on and board a new relationship. So y'all tell somebody, bring someone on, if you're on Facebook or Instagram, you tell them to go on over to the TikTok Live, Dr. G.O. White, and listen to this discussion. This is really, really important for any of you that are in relationships right now, any of you that are at a beginning of a relationship. There's a TSA, there's a pre-check process that I want to bring to y'all attention. So y'all tell somebody, y'all bring folks on and, for what I got to share with y'all. Because listen, social media, this is what I'm saying. If social media has taught us anything this week, especially watching Klay Thompson and the Meg Thee Stallion and all that's taking place and how it's trending, that everybody can look good together, but not everybody is emotionally prepared to be with each other. Y'all with me? Right? So you see the headlines, you see photos, you see whether it's entertainers, it's athletes, or folks in your own neighborhood. The question isn't, do they look good together? That's what we always say. That's what y'all love watching about Klay Thompson and Meg Thee Stallion, how good they look. But the real question I want to pose to everybody here, and I'm going to tell you what I mean. Did they go through what I'm calling the TSA pre-check before entering that relationship? Right? So chew on that. Y'all get someone on. Good to see you. Let me see what I got to go. Pete, glad to see you. Uncle Sam, glad to have you on. Y'all, we're about to do this. Let me get some people on into this discussion. Y'all know somebody on Instagram, bring them on in. I'm Dr. Gary L. White, and I go live every night at 6:30, focusing on strengthening the families, strengthening relationships, because of the impact. If we do it right, it has multiple generational implications. So that's why we're going to pause and talk about the pre-check. Now, I'm going to go ahead because I don't want y'all to be waiting out there too long. For those of you who are joining right now, when I'm talking about the pre-check, y'all look, just as you know that many of you all, when you go to get on an airplane, you have to go through TSA. We know that. And when y'all go through TSA, they're going to stop you. They're going to put your luggage in that scanner. And when they put your luggage to that scanner, they're going to look. And what are they looking for? They're trying to see if there's something that you got in your baggage, right? Something you got in that luggage that is not supposed to be on board for this trip. So, it's a funny concept, but if y'all really think about it, it's also a truth in a relationship. Some of y'all are going from one relationship to the next, and you're not going through TSA. You putting those unauthorized issues, and you're loading those unauthorized issues, and you're going into a new relationship. So we're going to talk about it. Y'all bring people on. Robin, glad to see you. This is TSA Preacher. Y'all, Spirit Airlines just went down. So that means that there are now fewer opportunities to fly, fewer relationships that we're finding ourselves able to get into. And some of these relationships are going bankrupt, like Spirit Airline, because you're boarding these new relationships with the wrong things. So I'm gonna lay it out for you all. I'm gonna talk about what the TSA really means, because there's a pre-check. Let me give y'all a hint, right? When I say the T, I'm talking about the traumas and the triggers that you bring into your relationship. So I'm gonna give y'all these because I want to break them down. Next, I'm talking about the S, right? The T and the S. These are the scars. Some of the scars of the trauma that's how those traumas have impacted you. And now those scars are showing up in your relationships. And then the A is the angst, right? This anxiety that things are going to look and feel the same. So the TSA right now, the pre-check. So what I'm going to give everybody who's watching is what you should not board that new relationship with. And I'm going to tell you some things that you need to board the new relationship with. So I'm glad to have y'all on. Y'all tell someone, come on in. Tell them Dr. White is jumping on the TSA pre-check. So this is going to be healthy because I love relationships. I love families, and I especially love at the beginning of relationships when we're getting to know each other. It is this time that the TSA pre-check is where it's so important. So if y'all on YouTube watching, glad to have y'all. On Facebook, if you're watching, glad to have you on TikTok, y'all. Let's get into this discussion. Tanja Christian, glad to have you on. Y'all don't have my glasses on, so I'm really jacking up some names now. But glad to have you on the TSA pre-check, y'all. Come on in. I want to really, really kind of break this down because, you know, when we're thinking about this, you know, there's some things that we shouldn't bring into the new love, things we shouldn't bring into the relationship. And y'all know them because they show up all the time. Some of these issues show up really, really early in the relationship. So this is why we are going to go through the pre-check. That means some of y'all in relationships right now, right? This is like I'm going on the plane. Y'all, some of y'all at the beginning of the relationship, I'm like the air marshal now. I'm about to go on a plane right now, and I'm going to randomly check some of the bags that y'all have brought into these new relationships. And we're going to take a look to see if there's some things that y'all got in this baggage that you shouldn't have brought in. Because every relationship requires a clearance, right? Just like you got to get cleared for this takeoff, right? And some of us keep getting flagged. And some of us keep getting stumped, not because of who we meet, but because of what we carry onto that new relationship. So let's jump into the TSA. I'm not going to be long with y'all, but hopefully what I'm giving you in the TSA pre-check that you recognize these things. And I need you to do your own self-check. This is your own inventory because you might be the number one carrier of all this baggage entering these relationships. And these are some relationships. Some of y'all, if you have too much baggage, don't y'all know sometimes that all that weight can bring down the plane? So, you know, this is, you know, these are some realities that we are going to chew on, right? So Erykah Badu, if you think about it, I used to love that song, Bag Lady, right? You gonna hurt your back, dragging around all those bags like that. No one told you all you must hold on to is you. So we are looking at that. So traveling from one relationship to the next, you must go through this pre-check. And so y'all, let's get into it. Y'all tell somebody, right? So here we go. The TSA pre-check, I'm going to break it down. I'm going to slow it down. And y'all pose, you know, I got some questions I'm going to throw up, but, you know, let's kind of look into it. So now the first one is the T. The T is the triggers and all the trauma. Right. So when we began to look, some of us, we have that trauma and we brought that trauma into our relationship. And now we got so many triggers. You have triggers like trust issues. You got these trust issues that show up as a primary trigger. You got trigger of conflict. Some of y'all just don't like conflict. Why? Because triggers are symptoms of unresolved trauma. Or unmanaged trauma. Not all trauma go away. Our job, some things that we do have memories of, and I'm saying that we can't make these things go away, but there are some traumas that our primary goal is to reduce the impact of that trauma or its presence in our conscious as well as in our subconscious. So the unresolved traumas is part of that T there, right? So overreactions, emotional shutdown, right? Living in the fight or flight mode. These are some serious signs that these triggers might be problematic in your relationship, right? Those unresolved, you snap or you began to engage in what I'm calling the self-talk. I done been through this shit before. Some of y'all will even leave a relationship very early, and simply because there was a disagreement or in a perspective, and then you're out because of the amount of trauma that you have. And so I'm going to push that, and I'm going to challenge you all because these reactions that may harm a relationship or the overreactions can harm a relationship, resulting in a detachment, right? So there's a theory about detachment. So this trauma here can make it very difficult for people to attach. That means that they're very quick to detach in a relationship. Charles, glad to have you on. Y'all come on in here. So what not to bring is the trauma, right? So we don't bring that trauma. We don't bring those triggers. And just because, let me say this, y'all, about this pre-check here, just because you tell the person you're dating that that's a trigger of yours, and just because you made it very clear that there's some things that are kind of triggering to you, then all of a sudden you put the burden on this new person in your relationship to be mindful of those triggers. Some of us will get to the point of having folks walk on eggshells. So these unresolved traumas and triggers, we'll do this and we'll talk about it. And guess what? I'm going to slow down on this. Some of y'all got too many damn triggers. Y'all see what I'm saying? Good to see you, Philly Green. Glad to have you on. So we're going to pay attention. This is like when we think about all these triggers, you all, this is like if I'm standing on my front porch and you're at the top of my yard and I'm like, yeah, come on across the line. Oh, incidentally, I got a bunch of landmines laid out. So don't step on them. That's the way some of us treat those triggers. So the T in the TSA is that trauma and those triggers. And so I'm telling you that trauma and those triggers, you need to be mindful of them because that's not what we want to bring in. But what I do want you to bring on, if there's another T, if I can, and that's the T around really thought-provoking and in being well-informed, understanding this thing called emotional regulation, right? So I want you all to be informed, the mindfulness, understand that, you know, you're having an experience or a past experience has stepped in and began to influence your present so you can recognize it. So emotional regulation means you can recognize that, you know, this trust issue that popped up. Good to see you, Jeffrey. Glad to have you on. Right. Let's see, brother TK. Oh, brother TK, good to see you, man. Man, it's one of my former students, man. I love to have them therapists jump on here. So yeah, so the TSA here is what not to bring, and I just told you, I think, what is important to bring. So I got a question here, right? Do you react to your partner or do you respond to their past? Let me say it again. When there's a scenario, do you tend to react to your partner or are you responding to your past? Think about it, right? So if I had a checklist and on that first T around trauma and trigger, here's a good question for you, that when you're having a difference of opinion, do you find yourself reacting to your partner, or is this really a product of you responding to your past, right? So want to give some folks a shout out. Glad to have y'all on. Gabby, good to see you on here. So there's the T. There's the T for the TSA pre-check, the traumas and the triggers. And I'm telling you all, what I'm challenging you all because I want y'all to bring that emotional regulation. Just again, and what I mean by that is that managing and being aware of your emotions, right? Being aware of how you respond and react. So self-awareness is what I want you to bring, not the traumas and the trigger, understanding how your past is informing your present emotions, right? You know it. Here's some of the language. I done been through this shit before. Yeah, I've seen this before. I already know I already know how this is gonna turn out. So some of us almost get to prophesizing, right? So we got the TSA. We just took our time. So I'm very curious though. I'm not gonna abandon that. Do you react to your partner or you respond to your past? That's a scary question for those of us who are watching this on YouTube or wherever. But I want you to do your own inventory of that, right? Or have you ever punished for someone for something that they didn't do, but someone else did? Right? Do you punish someone for something that they didn't do, but you really are true punishing someone for something somebody else did? Right? So this is how those traumas and these triggers show up in the relationship. You got a lot of trust issues, and now, brothers, you dating a woman who doesn't put a great deal of attention to her cell phone. She'll let her phone go dead or whatever, and you got now these trust issues because you try to call her and you can't reach her, and now you get an attitude because you can't reach her. But before y'all even met, she wasn't on the phone that way. She wasn't using social media that way. But that is an issue for you. So that's some luggage. You put that in that luggage and you brought that into that relationship. So there's the T. The S. The S in the TSA pre-check is this, all right? So this is what not to bring, right? These are the scars. The S are the scars in your past relationships. That's what the S is, the scars in your past relationship. And y'all, if you're honest with yourself, if you're really being authentic with yourself, you are aware that you got them scars. You know that some of y'all wear those scars on like a badge. So what are those scars that we done put in that luggage trying to take it to this new relationship? Mistrust from past betrayals. Mistrust from past betrayals. There's a scar. We also have defensive behavior, right? We're projecting a denial. You can't stand correction. You don't like rejection. All those things are getting in the way. So now we see that that scar has gotten you to become more defensive, even when there's no need to be defensive, right? What does that language look like? Someone says something. What the hell that mean? What do you mean by that? So now we're seeing how these scars have formed a type of defensiveness or projection, right, that we began to put on other people. You know how that other person behaved in that past relationship, and now you're projecting that that same type of behavior will show up. I got to tell y'all this. So in one of my sessions, I remember a woman said, all men are dogs or got a little dog in them. Dr. White, I'm sorry, but all men are dogs and they got a little dog in them. Never mind that she raising her own child, but all men are dogs or got a little dog in them, right? This is the pre-check, right? So I'm listening to that and you raising a son, right? So if all men are dogs, they got a little dog in them, but you are raising a boy. And I've never seen a sheep raise a cow. I've never seen a horse raise a dog. So if that your son is a boy, and if all men are dogs, you got a little dog in them, well, then what does that make you? Yeah, I'm not going to say it because I don't believe it. Good to see you, Robert. Glad to have you on Flavor. Glad to have you on. This is the TSA pre-check. I'm Dr. Gary O. White. Welcome to my TikTok channel here. We're talking about really what, this luggage or this baggage that we're bringing from one relationship to the next. And we're looking at the scars, negative beliefs about yourself and the relationship. This is another scar. This is how these scars begin to show up from your past relationships. And now you're trying to, good to see Joshua, you're trying to impose these scars or these beliefs that you have all of a sudden. You're trying to impose these scars and beliefs onto the new people in your life. And some of you, right, I just picked on the sister. I'm going to pick on you brothers for a second. Some of you all, you become so hurt. Y'all listen to what I'm saying. Some of y'all become so hurt that then all of a sudden you develop a whole universal view. So now all of a sudden you got your heart broke. And what are you saying about now? Because that individual woman broke your heart. Now you've got a whole world view about women. So now she broke your heart, and all of a sudden, these hoes ain't loyal. None of them. Well, that's your scar. That's your scar, and all of a sudden, then reshaped your entire world view because none of them are loyal because you got your heart broke. So we have to be mindful of that scar and how that scar can show up. These negative beliefs about yourself, negative beliefs about relationships. Right. And you know, I kind of get a kick sometimes when I'm watching some of the podcasts and other shows, and especially these young brothers out here. I watch and listen to some of these young brothers, and they got these views about women or of their generation and these expectations. And I'm listening and I'm listening to these young brothers give advice about relationships. Some of them ain't never been married. Some of them afraid. They're hiding because, you know, another scar is fear and vulnerability. So they will hide. They become a podcast pro and hide their pain, hide those scars, hide those triggers behind this facade of suddenly being an expert in women. And the truth is, it's a scar. You're speaking from the statement or the point of your scar. So fear and vulnerability. Now, all of a sudden, some of us will enter a relationship and we're scared to be committed to that relationship. We get into it, and there's a you'll see in that next when they angst, but we enter that, and those scars become so powerful. Those scars in that relationship become so overwhelming that all of a sudden, when the relationship starts getting better, when you two start getting closer, when you two reach a point that it may begin to go to another level, and because you've never felt that way, then you start sabotaging because of the scars. So we see the traumas and the triggers and how they show up, and then we see the scars that then show up and how they begin to speak on your behalf. Mistrust from past betrayals, defensive behavior, you projecting or denying or minimizing or blaming, right? A negative belief about yourself or the relationship, the fear and vulnerability. And here's the biggest scar that I see: unprocessed grief. I'm going to slow down for a second. Y'all think about this as a scar. Some of y'all are into the relationship, but you got a lot of unprocessed grief that you brought to this relationship. And now, and some of you began to put that burden on the new person in your life to treat you or to be your savior. You know, one of the things that I strongly believe, and I'm going to tell people to stop saying this: you get in a relationship and all of a sudden you are in love. And I told a colleague this, people need to stop saying somebody completes them. I think that's a very a vulnerable state. The notion that somebody completes you, right? They can enhance you, they can strengthen you. But if you brought somebody in your life to complete you, that means that there's a sense of incompleteness that you had. And so that's a setup, because that means if that person is not there, you back incomplete. So I think in truth, when we start talking about what to bring into the relationship, from a scar to what I'm calling a secure attachment, this is what we need to begin to focus on, right? Intentional, being intentional about secure, like having healthy communication, acknowledging vulnerability, building trust through consistency. So this is when we talk about the S of the TSA, instead of the scars, I'm telling you to focus on this security, healthy communication, vulnerability plus consistency. Believe it or not, you all, that's a healthy thing, right? Because believe it or not, I'm going to always argue the prerequisite to true love, in order for someone to truly love you, in order for you to truly love someone, there has to be a level of vulnerability. You cannot expect or want or desire for somebody to truly, truly love you, but at the same time, you got your barriers up. You got your protection up, because the closer they get, then the more walls you begin to put up. That's your scars, right? And so we have to be mindful of that. And so the scar, or the security part, not the scar, but the secure attachment, is beginning to do some healing work, not avoidance, right? This is not about taking off and running. Deborah Harbaugh, good to see you, right? Glad to have you on. Y'all, this is the TSA pre-check, y'all. This is the stuff I'm asking y'all to do before y'all enter into, or before you get too deep into a relationship. So we pay attention to the traumas and the triggers. We pay attention to the scars. Well, the traumas and the triggers, I'm switching that and telling you to be more thoughtful. In the scars, I'm trying to get you to focus on why it's important to focus on a secure attachment. And so when we think about these scars, in a relationship, do you find yourself protecting yourself or sabotaging the connection? Do y'all know somebody like that? That the relationship starts getting more serious, then people will do things to sabotage the connection, right? So this is a thought-provoking part that I need y'all to chew on. You're getting closer and it's scary, right? That's the A and the angst in the TSA, but we'll get to that in a moment. But Are you sabotaging the connection because it starts to happen? So maybe y'all know someone like that. If you got any questions, bring them on through. I'd love to hear what you have to say. You all come on in and share someone on this. I don't have long with y'all, but we gonna go through this pre-check because some of y'all are boarding a new relationship right now. You may have went through the TSA, but some of y'all probably didn't. And so we're gonna work on it. So in that relationship, are you protecting yourself or are you sabotaging the connection? So these are thought-provoking questions that are presented. I'm not expecting you to have an answer right now, right? But I will say this: here's how you know a scar is present in your relationship. Do you expect betrayal before trust is even built? Do you expect betrayal before trust is even built? You done already got in your mind. You understand. You've become a master in detecting signs of betrayal, but you are a novice when it comes to detecting signs of trust and strength in a relationship. So TK says, what happens when both myself and my partner blame each other for for demonstrating each other's triggers, right? And that's a very good one, TK. And that's where the trauma and what TK is really getting at, you all. Sometimes two people in a relationship they both got those triggers and they're triggering each other. And we'll begin to see how that shows up in some of the relationships. And this is why we talk about the self-awareness. You know what your triggers are. And I told you, I've always argued, and I will continue to argue, that some of these triggers are literally a manifestation of some of the unresolved trauma. So it's good. And this is what I'm going to offer up, TK, on that, is that for some reason, and when I tried to push to get people to have meetings, couples meetings at home, the crazy part we see, sometimes the most important part of a discussion, the biggest issue that needs to be tackled in a relationship is only addressed when it's attached to an issue or an incident. So now you all, an incident or something happened, y'all are triggered and say, oh, here's all the honesty, here's all the stuff. And I'm going to say that, when we start triggering each other, things start to escalate in the relationship. Someone's got to master the art of de-escalating. Someone has got to step in and say, I don't like the way we disagree. So beginning to have conversations with each other, and I think this is really important, beginning to have conversations with each other about improving communication, dealing with trust issues, but it's not connected to an incident. If y'all can hear me, nothing else from the TSA standpoint, that scar, stop having the important conversations and attaching them to an incident or conflict. Practice having the dialogue outside of it. That's what good, normal, healthy communication is about. Y'all, it might sound old school, but I think there's something in what our parents or your parents and great-grandparents did when everybody sat at the dinner table every night. Why? Because that was an opportunity for folks to get together, to talk, and to catch up and to share thoughts. But we don't do that. We only sit down together when something is happening or unfolding. So the scar, we want to counter those scars, and I want you to board the new relationship with security and with understanding. So we have the TSA so far. Y'all doing good. We got the T with the traumas and the triggers, and we're countering that T with thoughtfulness of being well informed. We have the S, right? Those are the scars. Those are the cognitive distortions, right? That we exaggerate things. And I want to counter that scars with secure. I want you all to be more aware of the healthy relationships. Now, the last one is the most interesting. We have the T, we have the S, it gets us to the A. The A is, y'all ready for this? This is the angst, the anxiety that shows up sometime in a relationship. This is the thing, again, I don't want y'all to board the new relationships on this. And some of y'all, you have a chance. I'm going to throw this out. There's a connector flight. So some of y'all, you might need to come down and get some of that stuff, take some of these things off that relationship before you board that trip, that plane, for the final destination. So, anxiety in a relationship, I'm talking about a fear of abandonment. You are in a relationship and you start the relationship around fear of abandonment. And these are the people in some relationships when there are issues of power and control. These are some people, believe it or not, because of a fear of abandonment or a fear of loss, they began, they're at the beginning of a relationship and they put more work in their survival mode, in the salvaging mode, and then rather than the strengthening mode. So fear of abandonment can show up around that anxiety, and then also that clinginess or the over dependence, right? We say that, but I want you all to hone in on this as something I'm telling you to be mindful of in the person that you're dating in the relationship. But at the same time, I need you to do your own self check and I need you to do your own inventory here because fear of abandonment, clinginess becomes an issue. So I'm glad to see some of you all. DJ, glad to have you on in this discussion around the TSA pre-check. So being mindful of the abandonment, the clinginess, the trust issues, all these things, the anxiety that is going too good. And y'all know some people actually do this. And this is hilarious. Y'all know some people will say that is the relationship is just going too good, right? As transfers come up. Good point. So this transference and counter transference. Yes, TK. I was talking about the projection. When we start projecting these thoughts, these views, these attitudes, and these behaviors onto our partner, and we not only that, then we turn it into a belief, right? So now I'm not only going to project it, I'm going to turn it into a belief. So again, and this is how that angst will show up in the relationship. This is how it shows up in those scars, that transference. We start putting some of the behaviors and attitudes and beliefs from our past relationships onto our new partners. So the truth is, some of the things we're triggered about, you are in a conflict with the person in front of you. But the truth of the matter is, you're in a conflict with that past unresolved issue. So some of us have so many unresolved issues on the emotional shelf from past relationships, from past traumas. And then when we get into a disagreement, we start pulling those issues off the shelf. And so the angst and the anxiety that shows up in the relationship, these are the things that you don't bring into that relationship. These are the things that I'm trying to counter. So, but I do want you to bring the self-soothing. I need you to begin around mindful. That's a thing that they call, y'all, where you could, you could catch your breath, you could slow down, you could be mindful of your own mood, your own way you communicate in a relationship. And I need y'all to practice this because this is the healthy part of the TSA. So again, like I said, I'm not going to just tell you the traumas, the scars, and the angst. I want to make sure I can also focus on what to bring on the relationship. So that mindfulness, right? Practice, right? I need y'all to practice. Stay in the present and work through the experience. And I think that that's something that's important. Let's see. Rising star. I like that. Some of you all are coming on pretty good. I appreciate the comments that we're seeing in some of these. Can't get to the YouTube ones, but the anxiety and that fear that the plane is going to crash. Some folks will enter a relationship and you almost begin to have a type of panic. It's almost like a panic disorder that show up in that relationship. Because y'all think about this. The relationship is going so good, you start to worry. You start to think there's a catch to it. And then because of that anxiety that shows up in the relationship, you then begin to sabotage. So there it is again, right? So, we have some questions that when we look at this, right? Do you need love or do you need validation in a relationship? This is my little test around the angst and the anxiety. In a relationship, Do you need love or do you need validation? Right? What's more important, right? The love or for someone to constantly validate you, right? If they don't text you back immediately, what story do you tell yourself? Oh, right. Could too good in a relationship result from low self worth? Absolutely. Is what we think. Absolutely is what I posed again, way up there in the scars. Right. We then all of a sudden our self worth. We start questioning our own self worth. It's a very scary thing, but when we look at those scars, one of the things not to bring, TK, I said the negative beliefs about yourself or the relationship, low self worth becomes definitely an issue that shows up. And that's why I'm saying this is some stuff that we have to be mindful of, not to put on, to load. These are the become what I call the weapons that we bring into the relationship. But to that question, right? Do you really need love or do you need validation? You know, way at the beginning of this discussion, I talked about Klay Thompson and Meg Thee Stallion, and that's trending right now. It's blowing up everywhere. That sister right now she is trending and she is blowing. I mean, my gosh, what I'm looking at there. But again, what looked good at the beginning, and I'm one of these people, I don't know nothing about their relationship, so I would never speculate in terms of what I'm seeing, but I'm telling you this right now, somebody didn't go through the TSA pre-check, right? And so and why? Because even the selling point, and this is an authentic, honest question in the pre-check dialogue, is that when you're dating, what is the selling point? What is it about you that you're promoting? And this was the only thing I had to say about Meg Thee Stallion and Klay Thompson. You know, what was the thing that was most appealing and most attractive to one another? Now, I dropped this a long time ago, y'all. This is a little side note. There's a book called Crisis in Black Sexual Politics. Crisis in Black Sexual Politics. And one of the edited articles in there talked about, it's an old book, y'all, way back in the 80s, right? But in Crisis in Black Sexual Politics, one of the things they talked about here is the pimp whore complex. I know that, but that's old school language, right? They talked about the pimp whore complex. And what was the pimp whore complex? It said that we are in a society now where where men use money and materialism to attract the women, and the women may use their sexuality or their presentation to attract the men. And so the scholars on that refer to that as a pimp whore complex. Incidentally, it's very unhealthy because we have to be mindful of what's most attractive, and that becomes your major selling point. You're not selling your personality. You're not selling your values. You're not selling your beliefs. You're not selling, think about this, you're not selling your spirit. But if you're selling that body, if you're selling that materialism, and then that's what attracts people. If the relationship is built on that, then guess what? These are some weapons that someone may have brought in. That philosophy, that belief is something that someone may have inadvertently brought into the relationship. And so when we look at this last one around anxiety, that's what I'm offering up to you all, is that these things that we bring into a relationship. And this is important. You have one bad experience in a relationship, and then all of a sudden, good to see you, Paul, then all of a sudden your entire worldview about that population has changed. Ladies, you have one bad relationship with a brother, and then all of a sudden you are proclaiming men universally ain't shit. Think about that. Brothers, you got your heart broken by that sister. And just because you got your heart broken by that one, now you are doing a podcast show talking about how women are in general. So we're going to be honest and authentic with each other. What I'm saying is that behind all that pontification, there's some scars, there's some pain, there's some vulnerabilities that are showing up there that we have to be honest and authentic about. And people will hide behind a podcast. People will hide behind some of the articles. People hide behind some of the reels that they do. But what they're really doing is masquerading their pain. And so this is where we talk about the TSA and why the TSA pre-check is so important. So back to Erykah Badu, right? The bag lady. When we become honest and authentic about these things, I think it's a healthy first step for us. So let me be clear. And I just want to be honest about this here, that when I'm talking about traumas and triggers, I want you all to understand your trauma is not your fault, but your healing is your responsibility. So recognizing, TK, this goes to an earlier point that you raised here. There might be some triggers. There might be some traumas. And those triggers or those traumas or what has impacted you, it may not be your fault. Most of the time it's not. But the healing part of that is your responsibility. And to be honest and authentic with yourself, to enter into a relationship and put that burden onto the new person in your life, rather than working on it, is what becomes problematic. So what baggage are you ready to check in today? What baggage, what are you ready to take off and check out today, right? So when you think about the T, S, and the A, right, the traumas, the triggers, the scars, and the angst or the anxiety, which one of these hit the hardest for you? Which one of these would you say stand out the most, right? So, or if some of you all are honest enough and bold enough, right? Which one of these would you be more authentic about? So you all join on in, y'all jump in, and let me see what comments that you all have in that regard, right? So where do you stand right there, right? The T, if you can be honest and authentic with yourself right now, is it the T, the traumas and the triggers that keep showing up in your relationship? Is it the A, the S, the scars, the unresolved issues that show up in your communication, how you engage? Or is it the A, the angst and the anxiety that causes you to sabotage, causes you to fight or flight? Which one of these are really most important and most impactful for you all, right? So I'm gonna be honest with this because I think it's important, right? Before you fall in love again, and before you say this one is different, I'm going to tell you to ask yourself, have I gone through the TSA pre-check? Have I done my own honest inventory of myself, right? Because love isn't just about finding the right person. It's also about becoming the right person. I want that to sit in. Love isn't about finding the right person as much as it is becoming the right person. Another way to put it is, hell, would you date you? Would you have the patience and to work through some of the traumas and triggers with yourself? Good to see you, Jay. Right. So this is the TSA pre-check that we just went through. And so this is an inventory that I challenge all of us to take, right? Because if you keep bringing those traumas, which is the T, when you keep bringing those scars, which is the S, but you keep bringing the A, which is the anxiety, into every relationship, it won't matter who you meet. The destination will always be the same. And so we have to reroute this plane. We have to reroute this plane and land it and get some of these weapons, these emotional scars. We got to get some of these unresolved issues out of that bag, because I want you to have a healthy relationship. I want you to grow in that relationship. So tonight, we make the decision. We're going to travel lighter. Tonight, I want you to make the decision to begin to heal deeper. And I also want you to make the decision to begin to love better. If you can begin to do those things, then you won't have problems going through the TSA pre-check into a relationship, because you would have dumped all those things out of the cart at the beginning. So I'm Dr. Gary O. White. I want to thank everybody for jumping on in. You all, I go live every Tuesday night at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. Tonight we're talking about, and I love this when we honest and authentic about it. Tonight we're talking about what I call the TSA pre-check for love, checking the baggage before you board the relationship. And so some of y'all are already in a relationship and y'all getting hit by all them weapons, all the scars, all the trauma, all the triggers, all the anxiety. And so sometimes this is where we need to retreat. This is where you need to take advantage of going to get counseling, couples counseling. As TK said, if you keep triggering each other, this is the opportunity. Sometimes you have to go to the gate and sit and let someone help you unravel some of those things, if you're honest and if you're bold enough to do it. I'm Dr. Gary O. White. I want to thank everybody for joining my TikTok Live. I want to encourage everybody to come on next week. Tell somebody, we look and see what's happening in the media. I'm going to tie everything back to the family. Restoration, building, healing, because that's what I do. So until next week on YouTube, until next week on TikTok, you all tell someone to join into this discussion. And let's see if we working together can strengthen and build relationships by starting with myself. I'm going to close with my fundamental mantra: start with myself, then the family, cover the block, onto the community. Tonight is a conversation about starting with yourself. If you do it right and you can begin to heal your own self, my God, how that will help and strengthen your family and relationship. So till next week, I'm Dr. Gary O. White. I'll see you all then. Take care and God bless. All right, YouTubers, for those who logged in and watching, I appreciate everybody coming on in. I hope what I said was helpful for you all. Join in next week, YouTube Live. I continue to engage in these discussions. So until next week, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, jump into the conversation. So YouTube, I'll see y'all next week.